The part people can't stop talking about isn't even the rumor itself anymore. It's the silence afterward. That's what made royal watchers across Europe suddenly suspicious over the last few days. 1 minute, every conversation online seemed centered around Princess Leonor and Prince Christian possibly growing closer behind palace walls, and then suddenly, nothing. No new appearances together. No subtle interactions. No carefully timed royal moments for the cameras. Just distance. And honestly, I think that silence is exactly why the internet exploded with theories saying the palace stepped in and forced Leonor to cut ties permanently. Now, before people start treating this like some confirmed royal breakup drama, let me say this clearly: there's no official proof of some dramatic palace ultimatum. But that's actually what makes the story so fascinating. Because monarchy has always operated through quiet signals instead of loud explanations. And sometimes the absence of something becomes louder than any official statement ever could. That's the real reason people are paying attention right now. Not because of one rumor. Not because of one supposed relationship. But because audiences are starting to feel like they're watching a battle between personal identity and institutional control happening in real time through Leonor's life. And honestly, that's a much bigger story than romance. Because if you really think about it, modern royal heirs aren't just expected to represent their countries anymore. They're expected to sacrifice parts of themselves publicly while pretending it costs them nothing emotionally. And I think younger audiences are starting to question that entire system. That's why this narrative around Christian suddenly became so emotionally charged online. People aren't just asking whether Leonor liked someone. They're asking whether future queens are ever truly allowed to choose their own lives freely. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe. I post every day. Now here's my personal take that honestly changed how I started looking at this entire situation. I don't think the palace fears romance itself. Royal families survive on marriages, relationships, public fascination. They understand emotional storytelling better than people realize. What institutions fear is unpredictability. That's the key difference. And Leonor right now represents unpredictability in a way the monarchy probably finds both valuable and dangerous at the same time. Because her popularity is growing precisely because she feels emotionally real to people. Not robotic, not overly scripted, not trapped in old royal stiffness. And ironically, that authenticity creates risk. The more emotionally connected the public becomes to Leonor as a person, the harder it becomes for the palace to fully control her image. That's why every rumored friendship, every interaction, every possible relationship suddenly becomes strategically important. Not because of gossip, but because narratives shape perception. And perception is survival for monarchies in 2026. Look at how different things are compared to even 10 years ago. Back then, palaces controlled information through newspapers and official appearances. Now, one blurry photo, one online theory, one viral TikTok breakdown can dominate global discussion overnight. The internet doesn't wait for confirmation anymore. It builds emotional storylines instantly. And honestly, I think the Spanish monarchy understands that pressure better than most royal institutions in Europe right now. Especially Queen Letizia. People underestimate how media-aware Letizia is because of her journalism background. She understands exactly how emotional narratives spread online. And if there's one thing modern palaces fear most, it's losing control of the emotional narrative surrounding the heir. That's why I don't think this alleged distance between Leonor and Christian is necessarily about one person being approved or disapproved. I think it's about timing. Because Leonor is entering a very delicate phase of royal transition. She's no longer viewed publicly as simply the king's daughter. She's increasingly viewed as the future face of Spain itself. That changes everything around her. Relationships become political accidentally. Friendships become symbolic. Private moments become international content. That's an exhausting way to live when you actually stop and think about it. And honestly, I think that's why audiences connect emotionally to Leonor so strongly now. She doesn't look untouchable anymore. She looks pressured. And in 2026, strangely enough, pressure creates relatability more than perfection does. That's why her military training clips spread online so aggressively. People see effort there, discipline, sacrifice, fatigue. It feels human. And this is where I think the Christian speculation became bigger than the palace expected. Because suddenly audiences started imagining Leonor not as a distant future queen, but as a young woman trying to balance personal feelings with institutional duty. That's a completely different emotional framework. It transforms monarchy from ceremony into storytelling. And storytelling drives attention now. Honestly, if Mr. Beast were consulting royal PR teams, which would probably terrify half the palace advisors in Europe, he'd understand immediately that emotional continuity is what keeps audiences invested. That's exactly what happened here. People emotionally invested themselves into the possibility of Leonor having a normal emotional connection despite living inside an abnormal system. That's why the rumored separation narrative hit people so hard online. Not because viewers know the truth personally, but because they projected their own feelings about freedom, pressure, and control onto the story. And maybe that's why this whole thing feels strangely emotional even without confirmation. Because at its core, it taps into something universal. What happens when your future no longer fully belongs to you? That's the hidden tension surrounding Leonor lately. And honestly, I think King Felipe understands this more deeply than people realize. He grew up inside the exact same institutional machine. He knows how royal duty slowly reshapes personal life over time. Which makes me wonder sometimes. Are the palace's decisions truly about protecting the monarchy? Or are they also about protecting Leonor from the chaos that comes when emotional narratives spiral out of control publicly? Because once the internet emotionally claims ownership over a royal storyline, it becomes almost impossible to contain. Every appearance gets analyzed. Every facial expression becomes evidence. Every silence becomes suspicious. And right now, silence itself has become the story. That's why people keep obsessing over what's missing lately rather than what's visible. No public closeness. No playful interactions. No subtle moments for cameras to capture. And the absence suddenly feels intentional. Whether it truly is or not almost becomes irrelevant once audiences emotionally decide it means something. That's how modern royal narratives work now. And honestly, this entire situation says something much bigger about the future of monarchy in Europe. The younger generation of royals, Leonor included, aren't growing up in the same protected world previous heirs did. They're growing up inside algorithm culture, attention culture, speculation culture, emotional investment culture, where audiences feel personally connected to people they've never met. That changes the psychology of royalty completely. And maybe that's why the idea of Leonor being forced to distance herself from someone resonates so strongly right now. Because people instinctively sense how little privacy future monarchs actually have anymore. Every personal connection becomes public property eventually. That's the hidden cost of modern monarchy nobody talks about enough. And honestly, whether the rumors about Christian are true or not, I think the emotional reaction surrounding this story revealed something important. People no longer just watch royal families for tradition. They watch them to understand how human beings survive inside systems that demand perfection while quietly taking away normal freedom piece by piece.